Thank you for taking the time to be here this evening. A very special, very moving evening. I'd like to just thank yous. First, I'd like to thank Malki and Jay Spector, who are sponsoring our program this evening. Malki and Jay, thank you for making this possible. Our heart is always bigger. It's always bigger to include so many people. It should be a merit for those who have passed away in the last 6 months. I'd like to just thank also those who have volunteered. Those who volunteered and are heroes throughout the last 6 months, and those who have volunteered and are also speaking here this evening. We have some remarkable people to hear from this evening, and I thank them in advance for making the time. Also, and our partners, I'd like to thank the FIDF, the Friends of the IDF, for the videos, some of the videos you're going to be seeing, the cards downstairs that are in front of you of soldiers who have fallen, and the letter writing which will follow our program. I'd also like to thank the Bnei Akiva Youth Movement for sharing both Rav Ben Siman, who we're going to be hearing from in just a moment, and Madi Feldman, a soldier who was active on October 7th, who we'll be hearing from, and also to thank the Yeshivot Bnei Akiva in Eretz Yisrael, and to Rav Kimchi, who's going to be here and addressing us a little bit about his Talmud who were in that war as well. I'd also like to thank the Israel Chesed Center, who we always partner with, and we'll be seeing some of their opportunities downstairs of partnering and doing something special following this program, and the OU joint program called Yachad LaNetzach. We'll learn a little bit more about the special soldier that our shul is going to be connected to. Those are the thank yous. We start off our program with the way that my October 7th really started, which was post Yom Tov. The first call I got was the call that I had with Rabbi Tadelbaum. Rabbi Tadelbaum, who's been the Morata Astria for so many years and was living through this in their own way. It's our great privilege to welcome him to introduce the program this evening.
Yom Hazikaron. Memory. To have memory alongside conceptual thinking is a distinguishing character of a human being. Utilizing memory of one's past, an individual can plan wisely for his or her future. If we know or if we are searching for life's meaning, understanding our past allows experience to guide us to or away from that which will advance or set back our progress toward a meaningful life. But this isn't unique to the Jew. This is for all human beings. What is it then that is so unique about Jewish memory? What and how is Jewish memory uniquely powerful? The answer lies in our field of vision, the breadth of our field of vision, how much we see and feel as occurring all at once here and now. As mere humans, the past is behind us, the future is not here yet. As Jews, however, we are part of Klal Yisrael. As Jews, we are joined and we are come together with all of the Jews, past, present, and future, in one sacred reality. The sum total of Jewish destiny through all time calls out to us, demanding that we do today what is just, what is righteous, only that we do what will play out in harmony with the greatness and the noblest of achievements of Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, and that will be in harmony with the noblest of achievements yet to come, of those generations to which we must give rise. Because Jewish memory has the past and the future all here before us in the present. And the people of the past and of the future are therefore somehow alive within us. That's the meaning of Am Yisrael Chai. We are alive. People are living. As alive as God himself. And, yes, it's God who said that his ever-presence across time will fill Jewish memory. He explained this to Moshe. He revealed his name at a most critical time difficult time as we were in Egypt, and he revealed his name to Moshe and to us. Eheyeh asher eheyeh. God said he will be with the Jewish people. Through it all, in all of our travail, and at the end of time, in our triumph as well. And then he said, Zeh shmi la'olam, v'zeh zichri. That's my memory, the dar dar. So will I be remembered from generation to generation. Tonight, we sanctify, we bring kedusha to the memory of thousands of Jews who lost their lives defending and living in our beloved homeland. Their devotion and sacrifice for the sake of our Jewish future. A sacrifice and devotion that so poignantly we feel, especially in these past 7 months. They did it for the sake of our future in our homeland. They and their memory is before us now, in this moment. We join in uplifting their memory, so their memory will uplift us.
Please turn your attention to the screen.
אזרחי ישראל, לב האומה כולה, עם משפחות הנופלים. אנחנו כואבים את כאבכם. אנחנו מרכינים ראש בפני בנינו שנפלו, כדי שנוכל להמשיך ולחיות כאן בארצנו. אני מבקש להביע בשם ממשלת ישראל, לכל עם ישראל, הכאב העמוק שאנחנו חשים. אנחנו שולחים את תנחומינו להורים, לילדים, לבנות הזוג ולמשפחות של חיילי צה"ל שנפלו בקרב על הגנת מדינת ישראל. אני מבקש לומר לכם שאין מלחמה צודקת מזאת שבניכם, בנינו, נפלו בה בגבורה. בכל קרב, בכל מערכה, יש אירועים מורכבים וקשים, וכך גם במערכה הנוכחית. אבל יחד עם זאת, הפעולה הצבאית מתקדמת כמתוכנן, והיא תתרחב ככל שידרש, עד שהשקט ישוב לאזרחי ישראל. אנחנו עושים הכל כדי לשמור על חיי האזרחים שלנו, וכן גם על חיי החיילים שלנו.
One of the first guests we're going to be hearing from this evening is a friend and a special person. His name is Rabbi Ben Sion Man. He's the director of education at Mizrahi, and was called upon this last year, in the last 6 months, for a job no human being should be called upon. He was here this morning in the 5 towns as part of Bnei Akiva's program, the Young Israel of Woodmere, and he very kindly, and we thank Bnei Akiva for allowing him to, although he couldn't change his plans, he had to leave to Toronto this evening, and I was with him in Shura, which is what we're going to hear about in just a moment. We took a moment to do a short interview just to get a sense of what happens on the other side. Please turn your attention to the interview. Privilege of welcoming to our show, Rav Benzi Man. And the irony is that Rav Man and I actually spent last Yom Hazikaron together, because if you remember, last year was the 75th anniversary of Israel's existence, and we were on a Mizrahi mission, and I had the opportunity of spending a very special time. But little did we imagine that this Yom HaZikaron would be over here. Rav Man works for Mizrahi, and among the many hats he wears, but in the last 6 months has worn a very different type of hat, and I'd just like to explore it. And Man is here as a function of his being here for Bnei Akiva programming in North America. And we're very fortunate to catch a few minutes. Rav Man, thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
The Chavod Rav is really our honor. We thank Bnei Akiva for allowing us this time together. You know, Man, can you just tell us, you had a unique perspective of what was going on post-October 7th. Can you just talk a little bit about your army service and what that entailed?
Yeah, so you mentioned the other hat. So until, I guess, October 7th, I was director of Mizrahi, and still am, I guess, director of Mizrahi school departments. And believe it or not, but Motzei Shabbat, October 7th, when I opened my phone, started getting text messages, people asked me, "Benz, have you been drafted yet?" These are people who didn't know my previous IDF background, because unfortunately my medical profile was at one point the highest, but it went down for medical reasons, and I was what they call a jobnik. I served as sort of the PA of the chief rabbi of the IDF. My brother used to laugh at me that, when he davened for Chayilin, he's like, "Benzi, I always have kavan, like, chas v'shalom, God forbid, you don't get injured by a paper cut or by a stapler." That was the reality of my work, very job work. And from there I went on to reserves, miluim, 1 day a year, kosher in kitchens for Pesach. Now when you ask, Motzei Simchat Torah, if you know all you need to do is kosher kitchens, like, why would they need me? And I generally thought I wouldn't be involved in any of the war. But early Sunday morning, October 8th, I get a text message, "Can you please come to Shura base?" And I'm going to the base, and I, at that point, don't yet know what I'm be doing. It took about 10-15 minutes from the time I came to the base to suddenly realize we were basically broads. And again, I had no prior experience. I did with kosher in kitchens, not with Chevra Kadisha work. Though I was a rabbi of a community for 4 years, Baruch Hashem, it was a young community and wasn't involved in Chevra Kadisha there. And I suddenly find myself, wearing obviously a full protective gear, but opening a container, and the whole container is packed with bodies and body parts. And first thing I see is just like feet. And then I walk into the container and I see a head of a kid staring at me. And before you know it, that becomes the new reality. The first week, as you could probably imagine, was crazy. It was the whole entire building base was surrounded by every room you go into is dead bodies, literally all over the place. And Baruch Hashem, past that, they were still bringing in bodies and body parts, but things from a civilian standpoint calmed down. But unfortunately, and just this week, and it's a bit of a change from my basic training and from my initial army experience, but it's what I've been doing the last few months.
Well, nothing can really prepare a person for that experience. I actually had a source of being there. I was with you there in November in Shura, as that was like really just a month after everything was going on. And but for those who just don't understand this unique base, most people perhaps before October 7th have never heard of Shura. Can you just explain what is this facility? What's under this ceiling?
Yeah, so I also, Shura base is located near Ramla, which is not far from Rehovot, which is where I live. And though I was in the Rabbanut and lived not far from there, I had never heard of Shura base before October 7th. So that's where the IDF Rabbinate headquarters are. So the IDF, being a Jewish state, and the Jewish army has a whole department, more than a department, a whole army, more than a unit, I guess, of rabbis, of chaplains, of a whole system to ensure that every single religious, traditional, or any soldier has all the religious needs that he needs. It's obviously kashrut, and it's in conversion, and amongst many, many things that pastoral care, one of the elements that the Rabbanut is responsible for is burial. That's part of, unfortunately, also a bit, not during war, but of course a time of war. So in Shura base, there's this building, this very impressive building, in all honesty, called Merkaz Tzvi, and that basically is the building, the Chevra Kadisha of the IDF rabbinate. So first, the building is extremely impressive to the level which I don't understand what they were thinking in building that building prior to October 7th. You're correct, there are 17 treatment rooms. There's an 18th high room that was built out of a temporary wall because they needed that room. So technically speaking, now there's 18, and perhaps it's not a coincidence, but basically 17 treatment rooms, 244 morgue spaces. Like, why would we need that? Never in the history did we need that. And unfortunately, it was nowhere near enough. So that's as far as the scale and the level. As far as the idea of Kedusha, the understanding of the Kedusha, throughout the whole entire process, that meant there's this deep understanding that what we're doing is Pashut, Kvod Hamet, it's the dignity of deceased for the people, the holiest of people who need it most and deserve it most. And just one of the elements is that there's a hierarchy in the IDF, as you can imagine, like all armies. And I have no ranks, very basic reserve soldier who only had 1 day a year of miluim. And there were times I had this really awkward responsibility of telling high-ranked alufei mishneh, I don't know what the equivalent is in the American Army, high-ranked officers, 3 falafels, right? We have to tell them and say, I'm really sorry, you're going to have to leave the room because we're not opening the body back. And only the very few people who are responsible for this role, I was at times part of that process, could be in that room. And it's awkward, but yes, if it means, and it doesn't really matter who's there, it could be the prime minister. If now we're opening a bag, this is the kedusha, this is the respect that this kadosh deserves, and everyone will step out of the room regardless of the hierarchy. So that's just one element, which I was obviously personally involved. Just the silence. There's chaos outside. There's just the trucks upon trucks and vans and coming in all bodies. But once they pull out a mace, there's absolute silence, and it's not even for the bodies. It's also for personal belongings. I remember I was involved in different parts in the Cheder Chafatzim, the room of personal belongings. And this is probably only a few days into the war, and there's a lot of important work to be done. I spent hours cleaning a phone, a cell phone. Basically, the screen was shattered. They were trying to think, we want to give this back to the family. And by replacing the screen, we could have done that, right? We have the money to do that. By replacing the screen, the family won't get back that phone that really belonged to their loved one. But to return it as is, we couldn't because it was full of blood. And what I did is basically spend hours upon hours of using wipes, and every single wipe was then buried with that fallen soldier because it has some of that blood, the dam hanefesh. But at the end of the day, we were able to bring that phone, that literal phone that their son had and died with, back to the family, shattered glass, shattered screen, but with no blood, and all that blood was then buried with that fallen soldier because it's dam hanefesh.
It's remarkable. Sometimes it's the smallest things which are so big. I just guess, like we're at this Yom Hazikaron, it's a time to dig into some of the horror, some of the pain. But at the same time, it's also a time of resilience, of we're leading to a Yom Ha'atzmaut, we're leading to why we're here, and this of being, how do you personally process this? How do you sort of think about this when having gone through, seeing perhaps some of the darkest of times, at the same time seeing the resilience that is within that?
It's a tough time now with that. We just had Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron coming up, and how do we sort of go from, especially this year, from Yom HaShoah with everything going on the campuses and in general, and then on to Yom HaZikaron this year more than any other year. How do you do that shift in terms of Yom Ha'atzmaut? And I mean, I think we're all going to have to deal with this together. But I think this powerful story of Rav Kusman is a great rabbi, He's a Holocaust survivor. And he starts Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, Netzach Yisrael. He's a great Rosh Yeshiva and a great rabbi. And he had several Talmidim, a whole range of students from all over the place. And one of them was Professor Yisrael Uman. Yisrael Alman, he's a Nobel Prize winner. And Yisrael Alman unfortunately lost his son, Shlomo, in Milchemet Shlomo Galil in 1982. And Rav Gusman obviously goes to the Levaya. Then he tells his driver, his Talmud, I want to go to Professor Allman's house, to Menachem al-Tishya. And he goes and he says, I want to tell you a story. I also had a son, and I lost my son. My son America, I lost him in Auschwitz. But then he tells him, I'll tell you exactly what's happening now in Shamayim. Right now in Shamayim, my son America and his friends are all waiting for your son Shlomo. They're all standing there waiting. And as he's coming in, with a smile on their face, they're saying, Shlomo, Zachita, you're the lucky one. You're privileged. Because we just died. We died, and that's basically it. But you had the tremendous chutz, you Shlomo had the tremendous privilege of fighting and dying on the Kiddush Hashem, but dying, defending, and protecting Am Yisrael, protecting Medinat Yisrael, protecting Eretz Yisrael. Zachita, you are the lucky one. And I can't help but continue that story and say, he was of course zocheh, but we're also zocheh. Because of course we value anyone who dies in Kiddush Hashem. But it's not about dying in Kiddush Hashem, it's also, unfortunately, it's about living in Kiddush Hashem. And we have the zechut, we all have that privilege to live in a generation that, God forbid, those who died for an amazing, had that zechut of dying on Kiddush Hashem, protecting Am Yisrael. But us, we have the zechut to live on Kiddush Hashem. We have the zechut to continue history in the place where it should be taking place. We have the zechut of doing everything that Shlomo was zocheh to do, which he died for. We have the zechut to live for. And the zechut to live on Kiddush Hashem is a tremendous privilege. And that's what we'll be doing in Yom Ha'atzmaut. Reminding ourselves that we are zocheh. We have that zechut.
We now move into actually the day itself, October 7th. Yom Hazikaron is always a very powerful time, but especially this year. And tonight, we have with us a number of people who actually were there. And we have an individual who is a member of the Atlantic Beach community, Charles Gross, who's a Hatzalah member, and was there in Israel. On that particular day, October 7th, was mobilized. Elibia called on him and went straight south. And it is our privilege to be able to hear from his perspective of what October 7th looked like on the ground.
Good evening, and thank you, Ray Trump. And it's hard to stand up here after such videos, but I think it's important to share what I saw on October 7th. So the first thing to understand is, how did an Atlantic Beach Hatzalah paramedic end up early October 7th in the south? I was staying at the Citadel Hotel, and early in the morning the sirens went off. And as I woke up to these sirens, I heard somebody outside my door, and I opened the door and I saw Eli Beer. Eli Beer is the founder of United Hatzalah in Israel. And he said, Charles, I need your help. We have a tragedy going on and we need paramedics. I said, okay, I'll come with you. We got in to his car and we went lights and sirens to the United Hatzalah dispatching center. When we got to the dispatching center, I learned of a technology that they have in Israel, that when you call Hatzalah with a cell phone, it sends you a text. That text has two links. The first link is your exact location. The second link is access to a video camera. And I walked in to a dispatch center full of TVs, and every single TV had a severely injured person. Overwhelmed with a number of calls, the dispatchers were trying to give first aid over the TVs. After a few minutes, I said, Eli, these people are all going to die. Where are the paramedics? He said, they're dead. He said, we have no paramedics down there right now. And I turned to him, I said, I want to go. He said, are you crazy? I said, I can't stand here and see all these people dying. They need treatment, they need help. And after he realized I was serious, he looked around and found one driver who had a gun. And a lot of the things I'm saying, you'd see pictures outside that I took on my cell phone that day, all the pictures that you see around. And he said he'd take me. He had a big machine gun. I felt very safe. Little did I realize till I was on the way down that it's actually 9mm with a big carrying case. So I realized, I thought he had a machine gun, but it's actually only a 9mm. After that, we needed a second person, and he found a soldier who was a Duvdevani soldier who had lived undercover in Gaza, who said he would come with us. We quickly filled up with equipment and started heading down. By 10 a.m. in the morning, I was already treating patients in the south. The scariest part of the day for me was every single car that we saw. We didn't know who was there. We knew that there were soldiers that were killed and that the Arabs took their uniforms. And every few minutes we would see cars parked on the street running and empty. We would see tanks. We saw an army ambulance with blood, which I later found out they killed 2 of the soldiers in there, and they brought 2 back to Gaza with their equipment. Again, you'd see the pictures around the back. During that day, I had the privilege of treating dozens and dozens of civilians. And today I'm Yom Hazikaron. Even though we think about the soldiers that lost their lives, we also have to think of the tragedy of the civilians that lost their lives under the same circumstances. But rather than focus on the many civilians that were not saved, I'm going to share with you the joy of life of the ones that were saved. One of the gentlemen was in the back of my ambulance. To give you a picture, I was one paramedic. I had 4 patients at once. One of the patients had put his hands up to beg the terrorist not to shoot him, and they thought it was more humorous to shoot off both his hands than to kill him. So I was treating a gentleman that had both his hands shot off. I was treating another gentleman that was stuck 3 times in the stomach. The good part about that gentleman is that he was saying how happy he is that he was fat, because the bullets went through his fat and never actually entered him. So he was walking around with actually melted fat on his arm, but he was pretty stable. Another gentleman I spoke to came out and was a physician going back to Tel Aviv, and a pickup truck of Arabs was driving toward him, and they started shooting at him, and he actually backed up over 2 miles using the reverse camera on his car because he didn't want to lift his head to a place where he could get shot. I don't have much time, so I'm going to try to just give you a little glimpse, and I'm happy to answer questions, and please look at some of the pictures around the room. One of the scariest times of that day was when we were on our way to a call, and I actually have some boards I didn't bring up. My son will bring them up to me, if you don't mind. I was on the way to a call, and all of a sudden, on the highway going to the call, thank you, Shmaya, we saw that traffic was abruptly stopping. And when we stopped and were about to get out, we saw in front of us that there was shooting in front of us. And I took a picture with my phone of 8 terrorists, 50 feet in front of us, and they shot dozens of people. And as we stopped and we turned around, they were trying to shoot toward us and toward the other side. But if you can see from this picture taken with my cell phone, there are 8 terrorists that were shooting 50 feet in front of us. Throughout the day, being a non-Israeli, didn't realize how close and where we were. But when I finished my day and I saw Eli Beer again, he went on the computer system and gave me a map of where our GPS went for the ambulance on that day. Sderot, Ofakim, Nova. We treated people from all the different locations. The miracle of me coming out alive, I couldn't even appreciate that day. And only when I realized where I had been and the tragedies were we able to understand. And because it's Yom HaZikaron, I want to end this limited time with a story about an army base near Ofakim. We were dispatched to an army base, and when we got to the base, we said we're here, and they said everybody we have here has died. There's nobody here to help at this moment. So I started speaking to soldiers at the front, and I said, what happened? And they told me this morning around 7 a.m., 3 motorcycles came. Each motorcycle had 3 terrorists on board. 1 was driving, 2 had machine guns, and they literally came in. They shot up the front of the base. This is a picture I took myself that day, and they killed everybody. And I was looking around the base, and there were bodies all over the place. Also bodies of the terrorists that had finally been shot. And we called our dispatcher, and we said, there's nothing going on here. And he said, no, there is. IDF command is calling us and telling us that we need to be there. Just wait. We waited another 2-3 minutes, and then we saw a car. I'll never forget, a white hatchback coming down the road. And everybody was so tense on that day. All the soldiers started putting their guns, told us to hide. They didn't know if this was a suicide bomber. They didn't know if it was terrorist. And this hatchback was just honking the horn. The trunk was open. And as it came closer, there was 4 IDF soldiers, 1 driver, 2 in the back with their machine guns out, 1 in the passenger seat. And the 2 in the back were holding the machine guns out the window, and I saw them holding something else. I couldn't tell as the car was coming, but when the car got closer, I saw that there was a young 19-year-old chayalet who was holding another soldier. He was shot in the head. She came to us, and she said, save him, save him. And I looked at him, and I said, Umet, he died. We can't save him. And she spoke English, and she started saying, no, it can't be. He was breathing a few minutes ago. Save him. And I said, I'm sorry. I can't. There's nothing we could do. It was obvious to me that he was hit in the head beyond anything that we could do in the field. She said, I want to tell you what happened. I said, please tell me. She said, this is one of my best friends from childhood. We're in the same unit. We were called, we ran to the base, and we ran into one of the kibbutzim. And we were told that there was hostages in a certain house, and we wanted to wait, but we knew if we waited, the people that were injured in that house would not make it. So this friend of mine, this chayal, said, we're going to go in, and I'm going to be the first one. If you guys don't want to go, it's okay, but we're going to go, and I'm going in first. And he went in, and he turned the corner into the second bedroom, and as he opened the closet, there was a terrorist with a machine gun who shot him in the head before the other soldiers could neutralize the terrorist. As she finished telling me the story, I saw who I later found out was the commander of the unit, who was in the front seat, say, Yalla! Yalla! And I said, where are you going? She says, Anachnu Am Yisrael. We need to go back. There's more Jews to save. Jews don't cry now, they cry later. Right now we have to go save our country, we have to save our nation, we have to save our people. And this young lady and the other soldiers with blood-soaked clothing got right back into the white hatchback, their guns still out the window, not knowing where they were going, and they returned to save lives. And to me, that is the epitome of Am Yisrael. That is a lesson I'll never forget. We cry, we mourn, but we move forward. We protect, we serve, we love, and we have faith. And I think as important as it is, and as the Rav said, that today we grow ourselves from remembering the past, but we grow and we move forward as stronger, and we use the memories to make us do more, serve more, help more, and become more. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. We have the opportunity of hearing from a young man born in Petah Tikva, the first sergeant, Matty Feldman, was a young man who also went south that dark day, also went into danger to save those. It is a great pleasure to welcome Matty Feldman to our show. Bechavod.
My story began in Jerusalem, but due to lack of time, I would like to jump a few hours later. We were in a base in central Israel where all the warehouse with all the equipment gear that we needed been there, so we went there to take it. So, and after Shabbat ended, my team and I drove to the Gaza envelope. Before I start sharing my experience from that horrifying week in the kibbutzim area, I would like to share with you what my unit is doing. So we are a mobile unit responsible for transporting everything needed, from soldiers to ammunition, weapons, and food. We have 35 Jeeps, Hummers, with professional drivers who can drive in any terrain and difficult condition. We know the area well and know how to navigate to where we need to be. Of course, all the people on the Hammer are trained soldiers who know how to respond to any threat when needed. So on October 7th, amidst the turmoil engulfing the state of Israel and the chaos prevailing in Gaza envelope area, we received a call to aid in clearance of terrorists and the evacuation of the deceased. Without hesitation, we mobilized to carry out the mission. So on Saturday night, we were on our way south to Gaza Strip. It was a very tense moment when the commander told us to load a weapon in the Kiryat Gat area. I don't know you guys if you know where's Kiryat Gat, it's 35 minutes from Tel Aviv. This meant at any moment the terrorists could appear from behind any bend or under any bush. We were on high alert. We had 30 minutes left to drive to Camp Urim, where we would sleep for the night. Those 30 minutes felt like an eternity. Finally, we arrived, settled in, and went to sleep, not knowing what awaited for us after the next day. We woke up in the morning, and as we prepared to leave, we saw a line of refrigerated trucks entering the base. Till today, when I see a truck, refrigerated truck, I only can think what's inside this truck. We all knew that these trucks were filled with the bodies of Israelis. Hundreds of bodies. We set out on our mission to reach a specific kibbutz and go from house to house to ensure there were no terrorists hiding, so that the team handling the bodies, Zaka team, could work without fear. As we approached the border, the smell of death permeated the air. Along the highway, there were burned-out cars on the sides, and everything was aflame. It was like scenes from a horror movie. I vividly remember the numbness that enveloped us as we approached the Nova Junction, the Nova Strip. There was a silent terror in the air. Nobody uttered a word. We were all seized by the profound sense of shock and devastation. Hollywood could not create a film as horrifying. It was a national humiliation. How could they do it to us? That's what kept echoing in my mind. I can still hear our commander cautioning us not to look at the faces of the bodies. I remember that the verse from the book of Jeremiah immediately came to mind. כי על המוות בחלולנו בא בארמונותינו, להכרית עולם מחוץ ובחורים מרחובות. For death has come up into our windows. It has entered our palaces to cut off children from the street and young men from the squares. Death has come up into our windows. Those who hadn't experienced the smell of death mixed with the scent of burning wouldn't understand. The Zaka team provided us with masks and sprayed eucalyptus spray to mask the odor, but it didn't help much. We went from house to house, the Zaka teams, helping them to remove the bodies. The kibbutz area resembled a war zone, with destruction everywhere, mines and explosives scattered everywhere. We marked them to warn people to be cautious and move on to the next house. Entering a house, you would see family photos laid on the piano, a cell phone left on the kitchen counter, still receiving messages and notification, a toothbrush lay on the bathroom sink, and a cookie box set open in the kitchen. You wouldn't know who last ate from this box. We knew that we can only imagine that this terrorist, after they killed, raped the people in the kibbutz, they would go to the kitchen to eat and to drink. It wasn't hard to guess which houses had bodies. As soon as we entered, the smell would hit us. We hoped to find someone hiding in the closet or under a bed, but unfortunately, we didn't find anyone. Some scenes were too gruesome to describe here. Enough with destruction, devastation, and the warring side of the war. It's time to talk about what truly matters. What truly matters is the soldier of the IDF, those who are currently serving in regular duty, and those who have put their personal lives on hold, leaving behind families, spouses, career, and studies, have stood up in droves without fear or hesitation. All are driven by a single motivation to defeat the enemy and return home only after the mission is complete. What a spirit, what a courage, what unwavering faith of the righteousness of their cause. What camaraderie, friendship, and unity, all the things we were so lacking just before the war. People sacrificed their lives to save their friends, those who perhaps only a month earlier could have been on the other side of the political divide. Here in Gaza, it no longer matters. The only thing that matters is restoring security and bring the kidnapped home. That's what's on everyone's mind all the time. I would like to finish with, and to share with you an idea that I was thinking during the war. The Hebrew shever carries two seemingly contradictory meanings in the Bible. It can denote a state of grief and pain, symbolizing the breaking of something whole into fragments. This meaning is associated with loss, destruction, and suffering. On the other hand, shever can also refer to the act of collecting, gathering, as in the one who gathered of all the land of Egypt, Yosef. This meaning implies unity and restoration. The birthing tool, known as mashber, embodies both meanings of the word shever. During childbirth, the mother legs physically split apart, representing a moment of vulnerability and pain. This is physical manifestation of the breaking aspect of shever. However, the midwife then gathers the newborn baby, symbolizing new life, hope, and joy. This is the gathering aspect of shever, representing the restoration that comes with the beginnings. Every shever or breaking contains within it the potential for rebirth and transformation. While we may initially experience the grief and pain, we must ask ourselves, what has been born from this brokenness? In the case of the birthing tool, the answer is clear: new life. The mother's sacrifice and pain bring forth a new human being into the world. The experience of shever can also foster unity, strength, and resilience. When we face challenges and overcome them, we emerge stronger and more united. This is evident in the story of the Jewish people throughout history. They have faced countless hardships and persecutions, yet they have preserved and emerged stronger than ever before. The word shever in the Bible serves as a powerful reminder that even in the midst of brokenness, there is always hope for renewal and rebirth. by embracing the duality of this world, we can find strength, resilience, and unity in the face of adversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matti, for a message of strength. I too cannot, my stomach seizes up as you talk about that smell. The smell of being in Kfar Aza, the smell of being in Tiva Asara, the smell of being in Kisufim, the smell of death and the rebuilding. And we saw many of the people in this room who were with me went down there. And as we say in Israel, heroes don't always wear capes. Thank you. Thank you for your service. We're now going to move from the big to the small, because sometimes it's so hard to process such big numbers, so many fatalities, so much suffering. So we move into the micro. We try to look at relationships now. A very special individual, Rav Kimchi, who is no stranger to our shul. Baruch Hashem will welcome you back. Rav Kimchi is the head of the yeshivot, the Reshet B'nai Akiva in the land of Israel, and has lost in this war 48 students, 48 alumni from his yeshiva, his Irashatot. And I asked Rav Kimchi if he could focus on a specific relationship so we can just dig in a little bit to appreciate. B'chavod Rav.
Yom Kippurim is a day of Jewish judgment. Yom Hazikaron is a day of national judgment. And we think of all these wonderful soldiers that fell. I was a tank driver and a soldier in 1982 in the First Lebanon War. I experienced a different type of war, different technology, different enemy, different situation completely. But I can connect to the smell. The smell of dead bodies is something you'll never forget. Nowadays, I am vice chairman of all yeshivot and ulpanot Bnei Akiva in Israel. We have 70 yeshivot and ulpanot that include over 24,000 students. We've got over 82,000 alumni. Out of our students and alumni, tens of thousands went into combat since the 7th of October. Out of those tens of thousands, I'm afraid, as Rabbi Trump mentioned, we lost 48. I personally buried 4 of my own Talmidim. One of them was called Reuven. Reuven was a very helpful fellow. Wherever there was something to do, he always volunteered. Reuven Shishpotish. Originally a French family, made Aliyah, lived in Jerusalem, used to bus every day from Jerusalem to Efrat, to my yeshiva, and for 4 years he was a student of mine, very successful. Afterwards, after the 4 years, he went to yeshiva for a year or two, and then went to the army. He was an officer in Golani. Eventually in his life, he got married, and he decided to start at a new village. The new village is called Shlomit. Shlomit is down south. And on the 7th of October, since he was an officer in Golani, he was in the immediate response team of Shlomit, of this new village that he created. And they were called by a village called Prigan. Prigan is a village nearby that was attacked by many terrorists, and they got no response from the army, got no response from the police. They called their friends in Shlomit. So the immediate response team, including Reuven, came from Shlomit to Prigan to help defend them. And they fought like lions, and they defended them until the last bullet. The amount of ammunition that these cruel terrorists brought with them was unexpected. And with all the ammunition that an immediate response a person has with him, with all the magazines, it wasn't enough, and he fell in battle. I tried to find out what has Reuven been doing since he finished my yeshiva. We haven't been in contact. I found that he has 4 lovely children, And I looked up on the internet if there's anything about him, and I couldn't find anything. I could find on the Haredi internet that he's mentioned many times. I said, why? What is it? Why is he mentioned? I knew he was a builder. He's got good hands, got a good head. And he was a builder. But what I didn't know is he built only mikvaot. All over the country, he was a person who was adding kedusha and tahara throughout the country. That's what he did as a profession. Big loss. A big loss. Sophia, his wife, is now trying to handle her life with 4 orphans, with 4 children. That's very difficult. It is so difficult that I've left everything in Israel. And I've come here just for a few days. I'm going to a few communities and I'm fundraising for widows. Just for widows, out of those 48 soldiers that fell of Yeshivot and Ulpanot Bnei Akiva, there are 17 widows. Interestingly enough, with 48, again, same number, 48 orphans. And that's what I'm here for, just to support. So why am I turning to you for support? So I want to tell you why I'm turning to you for support. Because Chazal say, Eretz Yisrael niknet bedamim. Eretz Yisrael is bought through damim. Now what is damim? Damim has a double meaning in Hebrew. Damim is blood in our body, in our limbs. We have blood. And damim is also money. Dmei Chanukah, damim is also money. And I want you to know, the way we are in Israel is some of us buy Eretz Yisrael with our blood, and some of us buy Eretz Yisrael with our money. You'll find on the desks in front of you this page, and there are more pages like this downstairs on the table with a QR. And I don't take a cent of this. All the money that we gather goes directly to widows and orphans of this war, of our boys who paid the ultimate price in damim and lost their life protecting our people and our country.
Just a few months ago, we began with a very special project, and that is the OU reached out to me and said, we want to do something. It's just so big, it's so vast. And Kimchi just gave a window into this young Reuven. We know Reuven, by the way, because if you remember, we had a young man speak in our community from Shlomit, who was Reuven's friend, who spoke just a few months ago. Do you remember this? In December, in our main shul. He talked about the 4 of his friends who fell. One of them was Reuven. We in our shul went to Naveh, which is the neighboring community. There's 3 communities in Charutza by the Egyptian border. We visited Naveh together. We visited Naveh when it was in Bayit Vagan, and when it returned in December time to its place down in Charutza. So we feel very, very much connected. And this is it. We're so small. We're so connected. What the OU said is we'd love to do with a program called Yachad LaNetzach, together for eternity, and to offer each community one soldier that fell that we can connect with. At the time they sent us a soldier, and it wasn't the right time yet for us to get in. There was so many just things going on. And then the devastating news hit us about Rav Perez's son, Rav Doron Perez's son, Daniel Shimon, who we were davening for, who was a hostage. And then it was found out that he was not a hostage. He had been killed in a heroic act as he charged the terrorists with his tank, putting his life in jeopardy to kill hundreds of terrorists coming in at that moment. I met actually Daniel last year on the day after Yom Hazikaron. It was at the World Orthodox Congress where Rav Perez was leading it. He released his book that night. I had the opportunity of meeting him. Rav Perez was my high school teacher. And many of us spent a lot of time, those who came to the mission, spent time with him in Israel and beyond, those who were not just in our mission. And especially in the time that we had in the Young Israel Lawrence-Cedarhurst time with him, we really felt we got to know Daniel Shimon. The way that when we had those moments together, we really felt that we got a window in to this very special young man's life. Not just his death, because that was before we even knew. And I said, you know, we have to adopt him. We have to do something special for Daniel Shimon, for Daniel Perez. And so as you go downstairs, you will see that we've now started a mitzvah corner, which is just to the right of the table for Daniel Perez. And we've created these little notes which are like raffle tickets, where it has his name. And I'd like everyone to go down there and take that note with them, with a picture of him, with his name, Daniel Shimon ben Daron, Harav Daron. Take it and do an act of kindness, an act of chesed, an act of Torah, an act of tefillin, yischus, and leave a stub. Put it in the basket. We're going to send it to the families so they should know, name by name. We don't need addresses, email addresses, credit card, just your name, what you decided to do for Daniel Shimon. There's another project, Be'ezras Hashem, to be unveiled soon, that we, Be'ezras Hashem, will be doing in yischus. But I communicated this to Rav Perez this morning, and he sent me a video, and he says, Rav Yaakov, I want you to screen this video because I just made it for the Tekes in Yerushalayim. I was with Rav Perez last year on Yom HaZikaron. We went to Miriam Peretz together. The two of us went to, he said, come quickly. We went to visit her. And unfortunately this year, they're visiting him. And so he asked us to screen this, and I'd like to give his words, which he just put together right now for our evening.
My name is Doron Perez, and I'm the executive chairman of the World Mizrahi Movement. One of the things we've tried so hard to do over the years at Mizrahi is highlight the national days, Yom HaAtzmaut, the privilege of a state of Israel, Yom HaZikaron, the price that we have paid. Who would have believed a year ago that I and our family, the Perezes, and our son Daniel, would be part of the story of the deceased families, of the bereaved families, the Mishpachot Shkulot of Yom HaZikaron. This Yom HaZikaron is unlike any other Yom HaZikaron. Here I am at Hostage Square, 133 hostages, including the body of our son Daniel. And you know, his story is perhaps like the story of the Jewish people this last year, since October 7th. He was first missing, then taken hostage, hopefully alive. Then we knew he was injured. Then we heard 163 days later that he was deceased. His body still held in Gaza. And our son Yonatan, who fought 100 meters away from Daniel, was injured himself. This Yom HaZikaron, here at Hostage Square this year, is unlike any other Yom HaZikaron that we, as the Jewish people in the state of Israel, have faced. Our son Daniel, what can I say about him? The most free-spirited, independent person that I knew. ADHD, adventure-seeking, fun-loving, always surrounded by friends, hundreds of friends he had. And a person who nothing could make him do what he didn't want to do. But if he wanted to do something, nothing could stop him. Indeed, when he was injured at the age of 18 in a wakeboarding accident, and his profile was taken down, he fought with the army almost for a year, so that at least he could go to Shirion. And indeed, his life led him on that fateful day to be an officer in the Israeli army, an outstanding soldier, ready to do whatever he needed to do to defend his people and homeland. You know, one of the gifts we got was his possessions which returned from Nachal Oz base. And in this we found a diary that we didn't know existed, that he began to write when he became an officer about 8 months before he passed. And in this diary, he writes about his responsibility as an officer. And what blew my mind when we opened to the first page of the diary, he says, Dvarim shani choshev aleim lifnei hashena, the things that I think about before I go to sleep. And at the top of the list was, I understand what my mission is. When I went to Poland in high school, I understood the price we paid for not having a state. Now that I'm able to defend my country and people and home, it is my responsibility. And then he wrote the following 5 words in Hebrew. Im lo ani, as me. If not me, then who? Daniel, when he put on his army uniform, took all of those energies and adventure seeking and channeled them towards serving the Jewish people. And on that day, for those 2.25 hours, him and his tzevet, his crew, fought with such bravery, with such coolness, with one thing which we indeed wrote in his gravestone, Daniel ish chamudot, this beautiful, wonderful Daniel, like his forebear Daniel in the book of Daniel. And we wrote the following 3 expressions. We wrote, Davak b'masima, he stuck to the task at hand. Lacham b'gvura, he fought with courage. Hitzil Rabim. He saved so many. In the Shiva, 2 families from Nachal Oz kibbutz came to us in tears, saying that they felt that their families were saved by Daniel's tank. They read about what his tank did and their bravery, and relatively few people were taken hostage and killed in Nachal Oz. And they came to thank us on behalf of 133 children and families that perhaps Daniel's tank and his crew was the difference between life and death. You save one person, you save generations. On that, arguably the most fateful day in Israel's history, Providence decreed that our son Daniel and his crew would be where they needed to be, to do everything they could to defend the people and state of Israel. I've been very involved in Yom Hazikaron ceremonies throughout my life as a student, an individual, a Jew, and a Jewish leader. I never thought I would be a father of our beloved son Daniel, participating so integrally in this National Day of Commemoration. My feelings are mixed feelings of immeasurable pain and pride. So full of pride as a father for our son Daniel, that despite the immeasurable pain, if it was decreed last Rosh Hashanah that Daniel was to pass away, to do it in a way that he was where he wanted to be, giving everything he could to defend his fellow Jews and the state of Israel, to dial Kiddush Hashem with such altruism, commitment and dedication to his people is an honor. And I'm so proud to be his father, while my heart is so full of sorrow and pain. The story of the Jewish people, of course, is not only one of pain and suffering. Our family story also somehow reflects this Jewish story. It wasn't 10 days after our son Daniel was declared missing that our oldest son Yonatan, himself injured in the battle, limped to his wedding on the 17th of October to be married. And here we had this impossible task. On the one hand, to be full of appreciation for the son, the injured son that could have been killed, God forbid, that we have and is getting married, along with the pain, the difficulty for the son that we do not, Daniel, who was missing. Yet, perhaps the most profound thing that I've learned in the last 6 or 7 months is how these two live together. The pain and the pride, the simcha, the celebration together with the suffering, all indeed can and do live together. And I've come to see how this really is the story of the Jewish people. You see, it was Thomas Cahill, the famed American-Irish historian and writer, who said in his book, The Gifts of the Jews, that it was the Jews who gave humanity the concept of memory and history, to look back and to remember our past. And he said in the story of the Jewish people is the story of humanity, that all this pain and suffering together with a celebration and their hope works together. And that indeed is what Yom Hazikaron, the day of memory and remembrance, is all about. Because straight from this day we go into Yom HaAtzmaut, the time of celebration, that these two go together, the difficulty and the celebration together. And so too from Tanit Esther we go straight into Purim. And indeed, the day of remembrance, when we remember Laman Tizkor Yom Tzeit Chameres Mitzrayim, when we sat together only a few weeks ago and together remembered what is the story of the Jewish people. And we tell our children, and we told them, and we tell them in every generation, Vehi She'amda, Shebechol Dor Vador, indeed, in every generation there are pharaohs. There are those who wish to destroy us, to do everything that they can, and we have witnessed anti-Semitism and opposition as we speak to Israel and Jewish destiny, that who would have imagined in our lifetime we would see such a thing. But we are told, not only Shebechol Dor Vador, we are told, V'akadosh Baruch Hu Matzilenu Miyadam, that Hashem will save us, and does, and has always saved us, and will once again save us with hope from them. And indeed, on this day there is so much bitterness. Our son, part of the bitterness, along with 1,500 others who've lost their lives, a bitterness that will always be throughout life, accompanying every experience of life, tinged with the bitterness of the maror, with the lechem oni, the bread of affliction that our family and so many others have been afflicted by. But that is only part of the story. It's not the whole story. The matzah is also the bread of salvation, the Korban Pesach, and the future of Jewish destiny. And yes, there is indeed so much pain, so much loss, so much difficulty, but never despair. And that's why perhaps arguably the most central Jewish word is tikva, which appears kaven Hashem chazak yametz libecha. There is always tikva, veyesh tikva lachritzet. There's always hope that no matter how painful and difficult life is, and so often is, there is pride, there is belief in Jewish destiny, there is a future. And part of this hope, specifically this year, as I sit in Hostage Square, along with 133 empty chairs, that the body, the lifeless body of our son Daniel should return with all of those to be buried with a kever Yisrael, a dignified Jewish burial, and the many who are alive, each and every one of them soon should be reunited with their families, and to bring each and every one of them home. The Jewish people will prevail. Am Yisrael Chai.
So please, when we go downstairs, if we could, it's not going to just be there tonight, it's going to be from here on inwards. We're going to think about ways to connect to Daniel Shimon. Rabbi Perez is very appreciative that our shul has adopted specifically his son, and we're going to continue to connect, to do Torah and Masim Tovim, Chesed on his behalf. Please make sure you leave a tab, you leave a message. We'll be sending them to the family, and we're going to be, Be'ezras Hashem, doing a very special thing for him too, in the coming weeks and months, Be'ezras Hashem soon. We're going to now move towards the end of the program, and in front of you, you'll see that there are pictures that are on the benches in front of you. There are pictures of soldiers. If you flip them around, there's a description, the FIDF very kindly put together, a description of who this person was, the life they lived. I'm going to leave half a moment in silence for us to take a moment to read through them. And then I'm going to ask everybody to rise after that so we can say Tehillim on behalf of those specific soldiers. After the Kel Maleh and after the Mishaberach, when we finish this program, we're going to go downstairs. And there are candles for every one of the pictures that you have in front of you. We're going to light a candle, the Ilun Ishmesehem, on this very special day. This will be led by Paul Gross, who is our soldier who fought in 1956 in the Israeli army. Be'ezras Hashem will be our first candle lighter downstairs. I ask everybody to take 30 seconds just to look over, and if you cannot, please share with the person next to you this profile of the soldier that is in front of you. I ask everybody to rise. We're going to say Tehillim together on their behalf. Tehillim specifically for the soldier that you're looking at. You comprehend the cloud through the prat. Let's appreciate this individual. The Tehillim Kuf Chaf Aleph, something we know by heart, unfortunately by now. And it is actually said to another person. He's talking about how Hashem will protect you. Hashem will guard you in all your travails, in all your journeys, from here and thereafter. Let's think about that soldier as you say it. Let's say it all together in unison. Shir la ma'anois, esa enai el-e'arim, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, ma'aseh shamayim va'aretz. Al yitain la'mod raglecha, al yanum shomerecha. Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan, shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomerecha, anai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh le'akeka v'yareach ba'alayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor es nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzezcha uvo'echa me'atah ve'ad olam. Now I'm going to close the program. I thank very much Shalom Jacobs for taking the time, Cantor Shalom Jacobs, for taking the time to be here and to lead us in a Kel Maleh on behalf of those who were killed. And as we move to hope, the Mishabera for Chaylei Tzahal, for those who continue to fight.
El Mole Rachamim Shoechem Bamroyamim Hamasei Menucha Nechayana Ala Kanefei Ashchina B'mahalois Kedoshim Toyerim V'Giboyerim Kezoya Horakiya Masiyirim Lenishmas HaKedoshim Shenilchamu B'chol Maruchosh Yisroel B'machteres Usivo Agonol Yisroel Shenafelu B'milchamtom Mosru Nafshom Al Kiddush Hashem Ha'am v'aretz Ma'avor She'anu Mispalelim Liuli Nishmaiseyem Lochem Balo Rachamim Yastirem B'chzei Ser K'nafav Li'olamim V'yisror B'srois HaChayim Esh Nishmaiseyem Adonai Hu Nachalason Megan Eden Tiyei Menuchasom V'yonucha V'shalavayim Al Mishka Voiseyem V'samoy L'chol Yisroel L'zechusam V'yamdu L'goyr Olam L'keis HaYomim V'noimar Amen.
Friends, tonight we don't have any music and there's no choir here tonight, so I'm going to ask you all to please join me.
Mishebeirach ha'avoseinu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov u'yevarech es chayalei tzva'hagana leYisrael u'yevarech es chayalei tzva'hagana leYisrael u'yevarech es chayalei tzva'hagana leYisrael Omdim al mishmar artzeinu v'yavrei Eloheinu migvol ha'alvanon v'yad midbar Mitzrayim u'min hayam hagadol ha'levo ha'arava v'yabasha ha'ivavir ha'amir ha'yuv ha'yam u'yevarech es chayalei tzva'hagana leYisrael Yiten Adonai es oiveinu hakamim aleinu nigafim livneihem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishmor v'yatzilech chayaleinu mikol zara v'suka u'migol nega u'machala v'yishlach bracha v'hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yedeihem u'yevarech et chayalei tzva'hagana leYisrael Yadber Soleinu Tachtehem V'yatrem ניצחון וקוים בהם הכתוב וקוים בהם הכתוב כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם להילחם לכם עם אויביכם להושיע אתכם ונאמר אמן.
I want you to know it's not just academic. Shalom has been, I don't know, countless times to Israel. If you look at the videos, the times he sings it is in Israel with the soldiers. And it's a special thank you to bring back to this evening. I want to just a special thank you to Alan Wexelbaum for this evening, to Alyssa Wiener, to Amy Wiener, to Mark Berlin for on the lights over there, to Eric Herman, who's stood up to come into video this evening, to Alana Kirshner, to Razi Faska, to Alan Dome, all for making this evening possible. This evening concludes as we take those names, we do two things. We go downstairs and we say Le'ilui Nishmas, the name of that soldier, and we light a candle. But then it goes further. There's a table next door to that where there are letters. And we are going to write, those who have the moment to do this, we're going to take a moment to write to the families of these soldiers. And the FIDF will be taking those letters to those families this week. So we're going to take a moment to light a candle in their memory and to send a letter of the feelings that we have towards that family. The chizuk we want to give that family can be short. Make sure to write their name very clearly. And Stephanie from the FIDF will be coming this week and being taken. I thank Rabbi Yehuda Friedman, Stephanie, fight for making this possible. Be'ezra Hashem, we should only know a geula shlema b'karov. Mariv will be in the main shul in about 10 minutes' time once everybody's had a chance to go downstairs. Thank you for coming.
Yiskerei Elokeinu letoivo Oy letoivo imsha Tzadikei oilom Yiskerei Elokeinu letoivo Oy letoivo imsha Tzadikei oilom Veine koi le'eineinu nikmas dam avoda bashofo yoy 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 veine koi le'eineinu nikmas dam avoda bashofo Oy 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 veine koim le'eineinu nikmas dam avoda vashofo Oy 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 veine koim le'eineinu nikmas dam avoda vashofo Yisrael Elokeinu letoivo Oy letoivo im shar tzadikeyo oilom Oy Yisrael Elokeinu letoivo Oy letoivo im shar tzadikeyo oilom Oy 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 veine goy leineinu nikmas dam avoda vashofo Oy 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 veine goy leineinu nikmas dam avoda vashofo Oy 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 veine goy leineinu nikmas dam